Killing Jesus, A History by Bill O'Reilly and Martin
Welcome
Dugard.
to Babina's Book
Chapter
Nook.
2.
Please
Rome,
note that any
March-
material discussed here is solely to honor and promote the author. The views and opinions expressed by the author do not necessarily reflect those of the show. Enjoy the journey.
In 49 BC, nearly 6 years after that massacre, Gaul is completely conquered. It is time for Caesar to return home, where he will finally stand trial for his actions. He's been ordered to dismiss his army before setting foot into Italy. This is Roman law. All returning generals are required to disband their troops before crossing the boundary of their province. In this case, the Rubicon River. This signals that they are returning home in peace rather than in the hopes of attempting a coup d'etat. Failure to disband the troops is considered an act of war, but Caesar prefers war. He decides to cross the Rubicon on his own terms. Julius Caesar is 52 years old, and in the prime of his life, he has spent the entire day of January 10 delaying this moment. Because if he fails, he will not live to see the day 6 months hence when he will turn 51. While his troops play dice, sharpen their weapons, and otherwise try to stay warm under a pale winter sun, Caesar takes a leisurely bath and drinks a glass of wine. These are the actions of a man who knows he may not enjoy such creature comforts for some time to come. They are also the behavior of man delaying the inevitable. But Caesar has good reason to hesitate. Pompey the Great, his former ally, brother-in-law, and builder of Rome's largest theater, is waiting in Rome. The Senate has entrusted the future of the Republic to Pompey and ordered him to stop Caesar at all costs. Julius Caesar, in effect, is about to begin a civil war. This is as much about Caesar and Pompey as it is about Caesar and Rome. To the winner goes control of the Roman Republic. To the loser, a certain death. Caesar surveys his troops. The men of Legio 13 stand in loose formation, awaiting his signal. Each carries almost 70 pounds of gear on his back, from bedroll to cooking pot to 3 days' supply of grain. On this cold winter evening, they wear leather boots and leggings and cloaks over their shoulders to keep out the chill. They will travel on foot, wearing bronze helmets and chain-mail shirts. All protect themselves with a curved shield made of wood, canvas, and leather, along with 2 javelins, one lightweight, the other heavier and deadlier. They are also armed with double-edged, quote, Spanish swords, which hang from scabbards on their thick leather belts, and the requisite pugiones. Some men are knitted out with slingshots, while others are designated as archers. Their faces are lined and weathered from years of sun and wind, and many bear the puckered scars from where an enemy's spear plunged into their bodies, or the long purple scar tissue from the slash of an enemy sword cutting into biceps or shoulder. They are young, mostly between 17 and 23 years of age, but there are some salt and pepper beards among them. For any male Roman citizen as old as 46 can be conscripted into the legions. Young or old, they have endured the rugged physical training that makes the stamina of legionaries legendary. New recruits march for hours wearing a 45-pound pack, all the while maintaining complicated formations such as the wedge, hollow square, circle, and testudo, or tortoise. And all the Roman legionaries must learn how to swim, just in case battle forces them across a river. Any moment of failure during this rigorous training means the sharp thwack of a superior staff across one's back. Once a conscript's 4 months of basic training are finished, rigorous conditioning and drilling remain part of his daily life. 3 marches of more than 20 miles in length while wearing a heavy pack are required from every man each month. When the long miles in formation are done, the legionaries' unit is required to build a fortified camp complete with earthen ramparts and trenches. So it is that the tough, loyal, muscled men of Legio 13 are drilled in the art of battle strategy, intuitively able to exploit an enemy's strengths and weaknesses, and proficient in every weapon of their era. They live off the land, pulling their supplies of grain and any meat they can forage. They have built roads and bridges, delivered mail, collected taxes, served as police, endured the deep winters of Gaul, known the concussive sting of a slingshot hurled, rock bouncing off their helmets, and even played the role of executioner, driving nails through the hands and feet of escaped slaves and deserters from their own ranks who have been captured and condemned to crucifixion. The oldest among them can remember the uprising of 71 BC, when 7,000 slaves led by a rebel named Spartacus revolted, were captured, and were crucified in a 240-mile line of crosses that stretched almost all the way from Naples to Rome. It is Caesar to whom these men have sworn their allegiance. They admire how he leads by example, that he endures the same hardships and deprivations during a campaign that they do. He prefers to walk among the, quote, comrades, as he calls his troops, rather than ride a horse. Caesar is also well known throughout the ranks for his habit of rewarding loyalty and for his charisma. His men proudly boast of the many women he has had throughout Gaul, Spain, and Britain, and they even make fun of his thinning hair by singing songs about, quote, our bald whoremonger. Likewise, Caesar gives his legions free rein to chase women and gamble when they are off duty. My men fight just as well when they are stinking of perfume, he says. But in the end, the legionaries fight first and foremost for one another. They have trained together, cooked meals together, slept in the same cramped leather tents, and walked hundreds of miles side by side. No thought is more unbearable than letting down their camelito, quote, fellow soldier, on the field of battle. They call one another frater, brother. And the highest honor a legionary can earn is the wreath of oak leaves known as the corona civica, awarded to those who risk their lives to save a fallen comrade. That Julius Caesar wears such a crown is testimony to his soldiers that their commander is not a mere figurehead, but a man who can be trusted to wage war with courage and distinction. But while it is Caesar who will lead the legion into battle, it is his men who will engage the enemy. Theirs is not a compassionate profession, and these are not compassionate men. They are legionaries, tasked with doing the hard, ongoing work of keeping Rome the greatest power in the world. In the growing darkness, Caesar now addresses his army, reminding them of the significance of crossing from one side of the Rubicon to the other. "We may still draw back," he tells them, though all within earshot know that the moment for retreat has long since passed. "But once across that little bridge, we shall have to fight this out." Legio 13 is not Caesar's favorite. That would be the 10th. But like his other troops, those soldiers are still scattered throughout Gaul. Waiting for them would ruin his plans for a lightning-fast march straight into the heart of Rome. Julius Caesar may be nervous as the temperature continues to drop and men shiver in the dampness, but any fear is offset by the awareness that each and every soldier in Legio 13 is a killing machine. Problem is, so are the men they will be fighting. Caesar is about to pit Roman against Roman, legionary against legionary, frater against frater. The time has come. Caesar stands alone, gazing over to the other side of the Rubicon. His officers huddle a few feet away, awaiting his orders. Torches light their faces and those of Legio 13. "Alia eacta est," Caesar says to no one in particular. Oh, that's the way he says it to himself, sorry. "Alia eacta est," Caesar says to no one in particular, quoting a line from the Greek playwright Menander. The die is cast. Caesar and his legion cross into Italy. What follows is not just a Roman civil war, but also the First World War in history. The entire Mediterranean rim soon becomes a battleground, its plains and deserts filled with legionaries, its seas brimming with warships conveying these men from one land to another. The fighting is brutal, often hand to hand. The fate awaiting prisoners of war is torture and death, leading many to commit suicide when a battle has been lost rather than submit to the victors. Caesar takes Rome within 2 months, only to find it abandoned. Merely capturing Rome is not enough. He must have total victory. Pompey has fled, and Caesar gives chase across the Mediterranean to Egypt. Okay, just on a side note, you guys, I think you know what's about to happen here. Hey, everybody, welcome to Bovina's Book Nook. My name is Regina Connell. If you are enjoying this, please hit that share, like, and hopefully by the end, I've earned your subscription. And the most important thing that helps out is watching, listening to the whole of it. You guys, I'll tell the story. I have mentioned it in previous content. So we created Bovina's Book Nook exclusively for books. We're going to be in the process of uploading all the books that are on West Virginia Wire since we have rebranded from @Regina Connell. We finally decided on West Virginia Wire, and I finally learned the difference between YouTubing and video uploading and podcasting. So I think you would call this a podcast. I don't know. You guys let me know in the comment section. All right. Thanks for listening. Let's get back to it. And also let me know what books you would like to hear in the future. I'm going to be covering 3 more books in this series. I want to do Killing Reagan and Killing the Rising Sun. I'd like you guys to choose the 3rd book. And there's a lot of great ones to choose from. Let's continue on. All right. As he wades ashore to meet with Ptolemy the 13th, the teenage king of Egypt, Pompey, the great general, architect, builder and prodigious lover who was married 5 times and who was 3 times given the privilege of riding in triumph through the streets of Rome after epic battlefield conquests in his youth, is stabbed through the back with a sword and then stabbed several more times for good measure. Not wanting his murderers to see his expression at the moment death arrives, Pompey pulls the hem of his toga up over his face. His murderers quickly cut off his head and leave his corpse on the sand to be picked apart by shorebirds. Thinking it will please Julius Caesar, the Egyptians bring him Pompey's severed skull. But Caesar is devastated. He weeps and then demands that the rest of the body be retrieved so that it might be given a proper Roman burial. So you guys, Ptolemy is very important because this is where Cleopatra enters the picture. Cleopatra was sister of Ptolemy the 13th. Continue on. But Pompey's murder is not the end of the war, for his outraged allies and sons will soon. But Pompey's murder is not the end of the war, for his outraged allies and sons soon take up his cause. In the end, Caesar will win the civil war and take control of the Roman Republic, much to the joy of its common citizens who revere him. Yet 4 years of conflict will pass before that day arrives. In the meantime, Julius Caesar will command his legions in locales ranging from Pharsalus in central Greece to Thapsus in Tunisia to the plains of Munda in present-day southern Spain, and his legend will only grow larger. Caesar's conquests, however, are not only on the battlefield. So there's an asterisk. All right, guys, welcome back. I haven't quite decided how I'm going to lay all this out yet. Since I have Bobina's book nook, I'll probably put the whole chapter together, edited and all of that. You guys, we're growing. It's a work in progress. I am taking the advice of separating things out with separate channels. I think it makes it easier on the viewers. I thought it would be harder, with having to subscribe to different things, but it's really not, because like for someone who only wants books, and that's the only thing you want, I do have playlists. I've had to learn a lot in this social media world. You guys, you can find us on the Rumble platform. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook, now known as Meta. You can also find us on the X platform, formerly known as Twitter, as well as Instagram. We're on Freely Social. I'm on the Truth social platform. I just haven't figured out how to pull it back up on my laptop, and I haven't been on it in quite some time. So you guys, we also have our other channel, West Virginia Wire, which used to go under the handle of @Regina Connell. So you guys, thanks for joining, and let's continue on. And we are reading Killing Jesus. We're in part E of chapter 2. And sometimes I want to do it in bite size, but sometimes people don't want that. I don't know. You guys let me know in the comment section and we'll figure it out together. This is a book club, and our sole purpose is to honor and promote the original authors. And they want history accessible to everyone. So those that can't run out and afford the book, or maybe don't know about it. And you guys remember, please, that I don't give away all the Easter eggs that are in the books. It's simply to encourage everyone to run out and grab your very own copy. If you cannot get one, don't know how to get one, can't afford one, let us know and we'll find a way to make sure you get your very own copy. Let's continue on. The year is 48 BC. A civil war is taking place in Egypt at the same time as the civil war in Rome. On one side is the 21-year-old Cleopatra. On the other side is her 13-year-old brother, Ptolemy the 13th, who is being advised by a conniving eunuch named Pothinos. Ptolemy has succeeded in driving Cleopatra from her palace in the seaside capital at Alexandria. The troubles in Italy then intervene when Caesar chases Pompey to Alexandria. It is Pothinos thinking to ally himself with Caesar, who has Pompey beheaded on the Egyptian beach just moments after the Roman is assassinated, while coming ashore to align himself strategically with Ptolemy 13. So you guys remember Egypt was a great grain provider in trade with Rome. In fact, that's how the Romans ate. They solely depended on Egypt, basically. And the interesting thing here is how their paths crossed. So what would have happened in an alternate reality had Ptolemy not taken his advisors' terrible counsel? And what if he would have met with Pompey? But we know that Ptolemy and his advisor both wanted to strategically align themselves with Caesar. Maybe they could have done it more peacefully and arranged a marriage or something, but inadvertently, so these two regions became intertwined. And so I think that plays even more into the story of Jesus, and it really reinforces the fact that he truly is God. He is the Messiah. But you make up your own mind. Again, this is a fact-based book. They don't refer to Jesus as the Messiah. They simply refer to him as Jesus of Nazareth, which is what I think he always only wanted to be simply referred to as. Let's continue on. All right. So we know that Caesar has been disgusted by Ptolemy's act. So let's keep going. But Caesar is disgusted by Pothinus's barbarous act, for he had planned to be lenient toward Pompey. What gave him the most pleasure, the eminent historian Plutarch will one day write of Caesar, was that he was so often able to save the lives of fellow citizens who had fought against him. Caesar moves into Egypt's royal palace for the time being, but he fears that Pothinus will attempt to assassinate him, so he stays up late most nights, afraid to go to sleep. One such evening, Caesar retires to his quarters. He hears a noise at the door, but rather than Pothinus or some other assassin, a young woman walks into the room alone. It is Cleopatra, though he does not yet know that. She has slipped into the palace through a waterfront entrance and navigated its stone corridors without being noticed. Her hair and face are covered, and her body is wrapped in a thick, dark mantle. Beguiled, Caesar waits for this stranger to reveal herself. Slowly and seductively, Cleopatra shows her face with her full lips and aquiline nose. She then lets her wrap drop to the marble floor, revealing that she is wearing nothing but a sheer linen robe. Caesar's dark eyes look her body up and down, for he can now clearly see much more than the outline of Cleopatra's small breasts and the sway of her hips. The lust between them is not one-sided. In that moment of revealing, one historian will write of Cleopatra, her desire grew greater than it had been before. Cleopatra knows well the power of seduction, and she is about to bestow upon Caesar her most precious gift, intending, of course, to gain a great political reward. The bold gambit pays off immediately. That night, she and Caesar begin one of the most passionate love affairs in history, a political and romantic entanglement that will have long-lasting effects on the entire world. Before the morning sun rises, Caesar decides to place Cleopatra back on the Egyptian throne, just as she had hoped. For Caesar, this means he is now aligned with a woman who owes her reign to the legacy of Alexander the Great, the omnipotent Macedonian conqueror he so admires. The confluence of his growing dynasty and Cleopatra's is a powerful aphrodisiac. They speak to each other in Greek, although Cleopatra is said to be fluent in as many as 9 tongues. Each is disciplined, sharp-witted, and charismatic. Their subjects consider them benevolent and just, and both can hypnotize a crowd with their oratorical skills. Cleopatra and Egypt need Caesar's military might, while Caesar and Rome need Egypt's natural resources, particularly her abundant grain crops. It could be said that Caesar and Cleopatra make the perfect couple, were it not for the fact that Julius Caesar is already married. Not that this has stopped Caesar in the past. He has had 3 wives, one of whom died in childbirth, another whom he divorced for being unfaithful, and now Calpurnia. He sleeps with the wives of friends, often thereby gleaning information about colleagues. The love of his life is Servilia Capionis, mother of the treacherous Marcus Junius Brutus, whom many believe to be Caesar's illegitimate son. But Caesar's most notorious affair was not with a woman. It is widely rumored that in his youth he had a year-long affair with King Nicodemus the Fourth of Bithynia. The sneering nickname, quote, Queen of Bithynia, still follows Caesar. So, you guys, if you didn't know that, Caesar was aka also known as Queen of Bithynia. Lacking from Caesar's many dalliances has been an heir. The number of his bastard offspring scattered throughout Gaul and Spain is legendary, but he had only one legitimate child, Julia, who ironically married Caesar's rival, Pompey, and she has long since died in childbirth. Calpurnia, Caesar's current wife, has been unable to give him a child. Cleopatra gives birth to a son on June 23rd, 47 BC. She named him Philopater Caesar, or Caesarion for short. A year later, Cleopatra travels to Rome, where she and the child live as a guest of Caesar and Calpurnia's at Caesar's Trastevere villa. When Caesar is forced to return to war, Cleopatra and the child remain behind with and the plot thickens. The, quote, friend who has stepped forward to engage Julius Caesar in conversation as he steps down from his litter and enters the Senate chamber is Popilius Laenas, a man descended from centuries-long line of land-owning Roman noblemen known for their cruelty and treachery. So, as the conspirators look on from a distance, unable to hear what Popilius is saying, they are justifiably worried. Only moments before, Popilius had wished Marcus Brutus good luck in the conspiracy. Perhaps that was all a ruse. The liberators can see that his conversation with Caesar is earnest and friendly. Their stomachs churn with fear that Popilius is informing Caesar of their plot. Not being able to hear what he said, but guessing by what themselves were conscious of and looking upon one another, agreed from each other's countenance that they should not stay to be taken, but should all kill themselves instead of Caesar. The historian Plutarch will write of this moment. Popilius ends his conversation by kissing the hands of Divus Julius and walking away from the theater of Pompeii. Caesar does not seem to be agitated, relieved, They settle back into their seats to await his arrival. The great statue of Pompey glowers down on Caesar as he glides into the Senate. Cassius, who, along with Brutus, is the lead assassin, turns to the statue of Pompey and prays, hoping to invoke courage from Caesar's former enemy. The entire Senate rises as Caesar enters the chamber. They have been conducting state business all morning, and now watch as he takes his seat in a gilded throne. Almost immediately, a large group of them walked towards Caesar, led by Lucius Tullius Cimber. There is nothing ominous in their behavior, for it is common for senators to approach Caesar with personal petitions. And indeed, Caesar can clearly see the scroll Tullius holds in one hand, but not the dagger he clutches in the other. It is easy enough for Caesar to guess what Tullius wants. The brother of the veteran senator has been sent into exile, and the petition is most likely a request for a pardon. The group of senators mill around Caesar's chair, their numbers growing by the second, until he is ringed by a small mob. They lean down to offer kisses of respect on his head and chest, which has the effect of pressing the dictator even farther down into his seat. Caesar grows furious at their aggressive behavior and rises violently to his feet. This is the moment the assassins have been waiting for. And I will say, disclaimer, you guys, very sensitive content, and the age is set automatically to 18 and above. Tullius grabs the top of Caesar's robe and wrenches it down past his shoulders, pinning the dictator's arms to his sides. At the same time, the liberator named Publius Servilius Casca Longus, quote, Casca, plunges his dagger into Caesar's shoulder. The thrust is feeble, and the wound draws little blood, but the sudden flash of pain as he is stabbed makes Caesar cry out, "Villain! Casca!" Caesar says in Latin while firmly grabbing the handle of Casca's dagger. "What do you do?" As he turns to face his attacker, Caesar sees not one knife, but 60. He feels not one stab wound, but dozens. Each of the senators has pulled a pugio from beneath his toga. Caesar sees the faces of enemies, but even more faces are those of friends, including Decimus Brutus, and that of another Brutus, Marcus, the arrogant 41-year-old Stoic who is also rumored to be Caesar's son. The conspirators thrust their sharpened blades into the defenseless Caesar, hacking at him again and again. Such is the depth of their frenzy that many of the senators mistakenly stab one another, and all are soon covered in blood. Meanwhile, Caesar attempts to fight back, but then Marcus Brutus delivers the killing blow. Instead of aiming for the heart or the great artery of the neck, the bastard son, Marcus, thrusts his blade deep into Caesar's groin. It is an act of murder, but also an act of emasculation meant to humiliate the man who could not claim Marcus as his own. Blood drenches Caesar's tunic, flowing down the pale skin of his bare legs as he collapses back onto the throne. So, and Caesar says, it was very commonly quoted in Shakespeare, "Et tu, Brute? And you?" shock all. "You too, my boy?" Caesar says despairingly, staring at Marcus. Not wanting anyone to see the death mask that will soon cross his face, Caesar pulls the fringe of his toga up over his head. A great pool of blood oozes across the marble floor as Caesar's limp body slides from his throne and comes to rest at the foot of Pompey's statue. Head covered, death arrives. Only after he dies does Julius Caesar achieve the ultimate power he so desired. When the Roman Senate posthumously defies him. Let me say that again. Sorry, guys. Only after he dies does Julius Caesar achieve the ultimate power he so desired. When the Roman Senate posthumously deifies him as Divus Julius, Julius the god is quite mortal, as his murder clearly shows. All right, guys, that's the whole of chapter 2. Thank you for listening all the way through. You guys, if you enjoyed it, please hit that like and share it out with 10 friends. And most of all, subscribe. And thank you for watching all the way through. See you on the next one.